One of the things that I've mentioned in some of my postmodernist lectures has been the semantic change of things, and also the lack of, or at least deterioration of, various folkways, mores, and conventions. Right now, there's a big scramble over rights. We have a right to open a restaurant. We have a right to go into a restaurant. We have a right for this and a right for that. Before that, we had legislation against smoking. All of this stuff would not have been necessary when I first started practicing law. There was a civil society back then where most of the rights legislation wouldn't have been necessary because the conventions were accepted by most civilized and polite people. So, for instance, there didn't need to be a law against smoking. The convention was, if you smoked in front of somebody, you take your cigarettes out and say, "Do you mind?" And if somebody said, "Yes, I do," you'd put them away. You didn't hear a squabble. Well, it's my right to smoke a cigarette, and it's my right to smoke in front of you, and get in all these heinous arguments about things like that. But when the legislation started to become symbolic, things sort of changed. I'll give you an example. There were 4 of us in a restaurant in Aspen one time, several years ago. And I was smoking back then. So I took out a cigarette and started to light it, and the table behind us said, "No smoking in here, don't smoke in here," and all this kind of stuff. So I said, well, if you'd have made yourself clear initially or whatever, or just said, "Do you mind not smoking?" I would have gladly complied. There wasn't any necessity for screaming and getting hysterical about it. I could have gone outside or done any number of things. Well, that seemed to placate the guy at the next table, and we finished our dessert, and then he turned around to the guy with whom I was having dinner, and he said, "Do you have a light?" The guy looked at him sort of curiously and said, "What do you mean?" He says, I need a light." He said, "For what?" He says, "Well, I got a joint here I want to smoke." And the guy next to me, who happened to have been a biker at one time, just lit up with anger and fury and started screaming, "You what? You make this big deal about my friend here wanting to light up a cigarette and the big fuss about cigarettes, and you want to light up a joint." And the guy says, "Well, this is Aspen." And my friend said, "Well, it doesn't matter. What you're doing is a judgment. Cigarettes are bad, dope is good, so you can raise hell with somebody for wanting to smoke a cigarette, but it's okay. You can smoke a smelly joint, and everybody's supposed to support that and agree with you that it's bad to smoke cigarettes. And it has nothing to do with etiquette or anything else." He says, "You're a selfish prick." And with that, we left the restaurant. But I was thinking about that right now. And we have this whole culture of selfishness, and it is impacting us where things are becoming defined in rights, and the rights are defined in the ability to impose your will and value system upon another, rather than courtesy or anything else. So you got people out there saying it's scrambling, and you've got militants storming a governor's or a government headquarters for the state of Michigan, for example, the Capitol building. And it's their right to not wear masks, and it's their right to not have businesses open, and it's their right to open their businesses. Well, of course it is. But it's not their right to transmit diseases. And if our country wasn't so dichotomized and split, everybody would recognize that. It's not a matter of rights or duties or anything like that. It's a matter of common citizenship. It's a matter of common courtesy. It's the polite thing to do, not to expose people to this virus and to not go up and cough in their face. I remember when the first scare about AIDS happened, police were panicky about anybody that was suspected of AIDS breathing in their face or spitting on them or whatever, and they called this a crime. And they made it a crime, and it got into the statute books about deliberately trying to infect somebody with a disease. That was okay for the cops to claim that, but not for the regular citizens. So there's all of this confusion. And the confusion is all happening because people are not practicing and not recognizing common courtesy, common respect of their fellow human beings. It's a them and us society now, and not a we the people society. The people are indoctrinated to essentially social Darwinism, where it's every man for himself or every woman for herself, and get yours before they get you, and you have rights. And unlike what I was taught in law school, since Magna Carta, with every right there's a corresponding duty, well, the selfish bastards of the younger generation don't care a damn or a hoot about duties. Duties are something that are fictitious. They're for old fuddy-duddies. We have no duty but to enrich ourselves at others' expense, because that's what modern social, economic, financial, capitalistic liberalism is, rather than looking out for the benefit of humanity or your fellow man. And that's enough for today of this sermon. And hope you guys have a nice day and enjoy talking to you, and hope you enjoy listening to me.